As the media's campaign focus shifts dramatically to terrorism refugees, Donald Trump and Ben Carson both having their dust-ups with the press. When a Yahoo News reporter asked Trump if his plans included registering Muslims in a database, Trump said we'll have to look at a lot of things very closely. Then came this exchange with an NBC reporter.
Should there be a database system that tracks the Muslims here in this country?
There should be a lot of systems beyond database. I mean, we should have a lot of systems. And today you can do it. But right now we have to have a border, we have to have strength, we have to have a wall, and we cannot let what's happening to this country happen.
But that's something your White House would like to implement.
Oh, I would certainly implement that. Absolutely.
But Trump caused a stir by tweeting on Friday, "I didn't suggest a database, a reporter did." We're back with the panel, Mary Catherine. There's this whole media furor now about whether Trump is backtracking and trying to shift it to the reporter who asked the question.
Well, it did get trumped up by the media to some extent. The suggestion came from the reporter first, which I pointed out on a Friday hit on Fox News, after which Donald Trump decided to come after me for pointing out that the reporter had said it first.
On Twitter.
Yes. No, but the problem is, as always with Trump, I don't think he's really thinking this through. He's just sort of affirming the question and moving on. And then you get affirmations seemingly from his staff saying, well, everything's on the table. So, yeah, there is some misunderstanding about this, fueled by the press and by him.
Trump's campaign manager saying perhaps Trump didn't hear the question fully because he was at a book signing. There was music in the background.
I think that's a problem with a lot of what Trump does. And in fact, he may be a little hard of hearing sometimes, not just with the hoopla of the campaign, because sometimes you see him lean in and try to hear the whole thing. But again, Donald Trump speaks and then thinks. And he doesn't take anything back. And in this
Fred, a lot of Republicans like what he is speaking about.
But can he execute what he's talking about? Can he follow through? He never has any details about what he's talking about.
All right, well, I want to stick with the media, and I'm going to do that by turning to Ben Carson, who also kind of mixed it up with the media this week. And this came after he was at an event, and Dr. Carson asked about the Syrian refugees, made this analogy: if there's a rabid dog running around your neighborhood, you're probably not going to assume something good about that dog. You're going to keep the children away, but he wasn't against all dogs. This got widely reported, to say the least, and then Carson said this.
So what did the news media do? Carson says the Syrians are like rabid dogs. I mean, this is the kind of thing that they do. Fortunately, it only works on gullible people, but the problem is there are a lot of gullible people.
Did the press misrepresent Ben Carson's analogy?
I think anytime you go with the word dog and rabid dog, you're going to see some backlash for that. I do think, as I said earlier, that the president is happy to make this just about, are you racist and you're racist and you're un-American by not accepting refugees, when a lot of American people are just saying, hey, I'm concerned about this. Carson is trying to tap into that, and I think chose the wrong way to do it.
Press is a great target in this campaign, isn't it? For all these candidates.
Always.
It's the only target for some, and reporters need to, when they ask a question of a candidate, reporters have to get when they get an answer, and it's a news-making answer, reporters should say, would you repeat that again? Make sure they get the candidate on the record. So the candidate can't then go back and say, I was taken out of context.
Ambiguous, they got it right, and all
exactly.
That. Now, the foreign policy focus, I think, is very evident from all the interviews. Hillary Clinton, in one way, perhaps has an advantage as a former Secretary of State. In another way, are the media doing enough to look at her record, as in the first 4 years of President Obama's term, on terror, on Libya, and all that?
Well, I would, of course, love to see more aggressive questioning of Secretary Clinton on the trail. She doesn't allow for that very often. Bernie Sanders could take a shot at her every now and then about this kind of thing, but he has not been willing to do that very much.
He doesn't want to make it personal.
Yes. I do think that the change from the Paris attacks, it will change the coverage of the race, and you will see more asking for specifics about terror. I'm not sure it changed the dynamics on either side, especially on the Republican side, where Donald Trump, people like that there are no specifics. They like this, we're going to gather them and we're going to bomb them.
Well, he projects strength,
yes,
but with those kinds of things, and that can be very appealing when you've got 120, 130 people dead in Paris.
I don't think that reporters are asking enough specific questions about this, and I don't think the candidates have specific answers. I think you need to be very specific.
And one of the reasons for that, Francis, is that when you get into questions of should we send ground troops, and the president, who got widely hammered for that press conference in Turkey, says, well, if you just send ground troops and you don't have a long-term strategy, what do we end up with? What he was really saying was we don't want a rerun of the Iraq War. Have the media been sensitive to the fact that these actions, we all want to be strong, we all want to go after terrorism, are not necessarily without cost?
Well, there's a cost involved here, but nobody has mentioned, nobody in this table too wants to see just the Americans go at it. You know, no reporter wants to see Americans just ground troops. But what if the French president comes here this week and asks for American support with the French, with the Germans, with the NATO allies, invokes Article 5 of the NATO? What if he does that? What are reporters and candidates going to do then? They're going to have to know what to do. How is an invasion going to take place?
And conservative commentators and the mainstream media generally faulting President Obama's handling of this, his rhetorical approach. But you even had some liberal columnists saying, well, Obama's policy is not bad, but boy, he seemed tone deaf to the fear and concern in America in the wake of Paris and now Mali.
When you look at the polling, obviously people are concerned about this. He's not willing to acknowledge those concerns and talk about them. Like I said, he's talking about this is un-American before he talks about this is how we're vetting people, which I think is the main concern.
All right, so what is the media's role here in terms of holding the president accountable and illuminating these issues?
Well, I think one is to drill down on how exactly we do this vetting and how he expects people to trust him to do the vetting, especially when he's not convincing Democrats on the Hill that he's going to do the vetting properly.
How about a question to the president or to the candidates? Is the president just marking time till the next, to the next administration?
Well, you know what the answer is going to be there. No, he's fully engaged in trying to fight this battle.
And here's the thing, on foreign policy, there aren't easy answers. That is true. Like, once you commit ground troops, are you going to stay there for nation building? How's this going to play out? But it's the job of the president and national figures who are running for president to be able to navigate the schizophrenia of the American public.
And it's the job of reporters to get them to those answers. And that's
what I was going to say, but you took it. They took the line. All right, Fred Francis, Mary Catherine Ham, great to see you this Sunday. Up next, why did the media slack off on the war against ISIS until the horror of the carnage in Paris? And later,